Hey there guys, this is Chris from VFXON, and in this tutorial I'm gonna show you how to add your 3D text or 3D object in your video using only After Effects and Cinema 4D. In this particular tutorial I'm gonna use the new After Effects feature Cineware, so it is only available to the After Effects CC. So if you have CS6 or below, it is not available and you have to have After Effects CC. So this is what I did. So a pretty basic and easy composition right here. Although you can see that the shadows are does not look that good, but this was a quick composition, and if you work on it you obviously can do it a lot better. So let's just get into After Effects. Okay, so now we should import our footage, which I already did here, and then just drag the footage to the new composition icon here. Okay, so now we have to simulate the camera movement, and we can do that by right clicking on our footage and going to track camera. So it's gonna analyze the background and then it's gonna do the camera tracking. So I'm gonna be back when that's done. Okay, so now the camera tracking is done, and we should find a good spot for our plane that will be as a ground. That is looking kind of, let's see which one. Well, I would have to say that these points do look really good, and they look kinda okay to me, so I'm just gonna click, and they already connect these points. As you can see, you have 3 points here connected. And next what we have to do is right click and set ground plane and origin, and after that again right click and create solid and camera. So now we have to export all of this so we can work further in the Cinema 4D. So if you go to File, Export, here we have Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter. And now I'm gonna save this here, tutorial, tracking, and save. So now we can move into Cinema 4D. So, and an easy way to open the file in Cinema 4D is to import it in After Effects. So we just drag the Cinema 4D file in our project window in After Effects, and then just add it to our timeline like this. And then we go to Edit and Edit Original. So, and it automatically opens the Cinema 4D with your footage and your virtual camera right here, so it simulates the movement of your camera. Here we have our 3D camera and our track solid, but we don't have any background, so we should add that. Either way, you can add it with an actual footage or with just a simple background image. So let's jump back quickly in After Effects, and now let's go to, no, actually we have to shut down the solid in the tutorial tracking Cinema 4D file, and let's go to Composition, Save Frame as File or Photoshop file. So it's already in Photoshop PSD, so just find the place you want it to save. I'm gonna save it right here, and just save and render. So we are at frame 25. So no, actually we're not. Let's control click. So we are at frame 1097, and that's because the footage that I'm using is cut into piece. As you can see here, I have a cut. So frame 1097, remember that. And now we can jump back into Cinema 4D. Okay, so now let's create a new texture. I'm gonna name this BG for background. Go to color, right click on texture. What? Oh yeah, just click on the texture, load image, and just load the image right here. So click open, then close. Let's add a background, and let's apply this material to the background like this. Also, we have to go to the frame that this image was shot at, and it was shot at 1090 second frames, so just one ahead, so it was shot here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna delete the track solid right here, and let's add a text. Let's go to spline and add a text and type whatever you want. Obviously I'm gonna type VFXON. I'm not gonna change the font, maybe just a little bit the height, somewhat like this, and then just go to extrude NURBS and alt click on it, so it's already inside the, so the text is parent to the extrude NURBS, no, opposite of that. So, and then just let's add a caps, fillet cap. No, before that let's go to object and let's increase the depth of the text like this. Also I'm just gonna a little bit rotate the text like so. So let's go back to extrude NURBS, caps, step, let's say 10 and 13, 10, 13. Okay, maybe I added a little bit too much of fillet cap, so I guess maybe 4 and let's say 6, 4, 6, something like this. Well, it kind of looks a lot better in my opinion, but it's only my opinion. So now let's add light, and as you can see, the shadow is sort of casting this way or this way, so we should match it somehow, at least almost the same as in the shot. So something like this, omni light and shadow map soft. Now let's duplicate this light, and I'm gonna move it to about right here, and I'm gonna make this light a little bit less bright. And another thing to notice is that you can freely move around in this 3D space. As you can see, I moved already a lot, and don't worry, because we have our 3D tracked camera with a lot of keyframes right here, it's gonna automatically put you back in the place that your camera is at. As long as you don't change any of these keyframes here, you're good to go. So yeah, let's make another material. Let's see, I'm gonna make it really bright, just like this. Just for the tutorial purpose, I'm not gonna add any texture or anything like that, just simple white text is in preview, and yeah, let's do a quick render. So, well, of course it does not look perfect, but well, just to show you how to do this, it's pretty good in my opinion. So now we need a plane that will catch our shadows from our light, so let's increase the plane like this, and if we render this right, well, I think I should set this to no shadows, and I have to move this light to about like here, something like this, or even lower and closer to the text. If we turn off this light, let's see, like this, maybe even more further away, something like this. Now look, well, just a tiny bit up front, and let's turn back this light. And yeah, this looks good compared to the shadows on the other objects. Right here you can see the shadows kind of matching, so that's good, and that's what we want. So yeah, this looks good. And now if I save this Cinema 4D file and jump back in After Effects, and if we turn on our Cinema 4D file, you can see that our Cinema 4D file is already here with everything we just did in Cinema 4D, so that's a pretty cool feature. Now let's go back to Cinema 4D, and let's go to Settings, Effect, Ambient Occlusion. Let's render that out. So this looks good. Okay, so and what we want to see is the text, obviously, in our composition in After Effects. We don't want the plane. And let's right click here on Extrude NURB, Cinema 4D Tags, and Compositing. Let's go to Object Buffer, and let's click Enable on the first object buffer. Let's go to Settings, check the Multipass, right click on it and select Shadows, right click again and select Ambient Occlusion. And now we can close this, save the file, and jump in After Effects. Okay, now we have here we have our text and everything, and at the render settings in Cineware we have software. We want that to standard final. It's gonna take some while to render, and now we have everything with our shadows, with our ambient occlusion, except this big pile of plane. Although it's not a pile, but it's a, well, it's not needed obviously, and it ruins the shot, so we need to get rid of it. First of all, I'm gonna rename this to Text 3D, duplicate this layer, rename it to Text 3D Mate. And okay, now back in After Effects, let's go to Settings, Multipass, and right click Object Buffer. Where is that? Where are you? Oh, here it is, Object Buffer, and Group ID, make sure it's 1 because our Extrude NURB we set Object Buffer to also 1, so 1 1. Let's close that and hit save, and let's move to After Effects. Okay, now we have here on our 3D text mat, we have Cinema 4D Multipass. We will click that, set Multipass, and we will select the Object Buffer, click OK. And now with this done, we can only see our 3D text. Now let's click on Text 3D and go to Track Matte and change that to Luma Matte. Now what this does is it cuts out everything except for our 3D text, but we need our shadows in, so let's duplicate our 3D text matte. Let's rename it to Ambient Occlusion AO and go to Set Multipass, and this time we'll click Ambient Occlusion and click OK. And let's turn that on. Obviously this is not what you're expecting, so let's change the mode to multiply, and now we can see our ambient occlusion. Now let's duplicate this layer once again, and let's call this 3D text, no, text 3D shadows. Let's go set multipass, ambient occlusion, and change that to shadows and click OK. So now we have our shadows, ambient occlusion, and our 3D text without the plane. So doing it this way, we can adjust each of these aspects or layers right here. For example, if I want to change the color of our shadows, I can just adjust this layer here, or ambient occlusion, or only our 3D text. So this is a really cool way of tracking your object or text into your footage, so you have sort of more control of what you wanna edit in After Effects instead of the full 3D text or full composition. What's good about the Cineware is that we can make some adjustments or updates or a 3D text or object, save it, and we have the updated version already in After Effects, so you don't have to render that full stuff out and then import it in After Effects again. So that's a pretty good feature of Cineware that I really love. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna color correct the 3D text we have here. So let's click the text 3D layer, effect, color correction, curves, and so that the footage was shot when the sun was setting, so that means I want it to be sort of like bright and soft, but I also want some shadows in it, so something like this looks good to me. And now let's go to red channel, maybe even adjust that. As you can see here, we have obviously sun is setting and the shadows and everything is kind of looking a little red, so that's what I want to a little bit add to the text here. So not much, just a tiny bit of red like this. So let's go to effect, color correction, and curves again. Let's just, I want to sort of brighten the shot a little bit and make it sort of like it looks something like this, and go to red channel, increase just a little bit of red like this, not much, just a little bit, so it looks more warm than it was previously. So like this. And if we check how it looked before, well, I would have to say it's a good improvement right there. And let's go to shadows and add a fast blur to it, just a little bit, because you can see that the shadows is not so big on other things around the shot. Maybe even less, like let's say 2. And let's go to transform, and I'm gonna turn off the opacity just a tiny bit, like something like this. Now let's go to effect, color correction, curves. And just make them a little bit brighter than they are. I'm gonna turn off, delete the fast blur, and turn on the opacity once again. So something like this, because the shadows, I don't want them to be really thick. I just want small shadows, as they could be casted in this particular time of a day that this was shot at. So like I said, this effect only works with Adobe After Effects CC. It does not work with CS6 or any down below versions. So it's a pretty cool feature that Cineware is. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe and like. Also make sure to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, and now on Google+. So I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye.